Sanje, Chudan, Soji, Chonama, Janju Bada, Gapsi, Davichi, Soji, Sonanki, Cholabaja, Sanje, Sanje, Chodan, Soji, Chonama, Janju Bada, Gapsi, Davichi, Cholabaja, Sanje, Sanje, Chodan, Soji, Chonama, Janju Bada, Gapsi, Davichi, Cholabaja, Sanje, Dayata, Gade, Parasangate, Bodhi Soha, Dayata, Gade, Parasangate, Bodhi Soha, Dayata, Gade, Parasangate, Bodhi Soha. What's the get of the Tochalana Macheva Sanjay Komar Mochi, Tobacha? The age of the judges and the Latin of Sushi, Lawala, simple, Tochi Mano, Chikotu. Kosovo, the Tamala Tsong-kha-pa, Lam Rim subject and attention to be subject.
So, setting our motivation to do whatever we possibly can to attain the peerless state of enlightenment, and in order to do so, knowing that we must have a knowledge of the Bodhisattva's practices. In order to do that, we must gain an understanding of them based on a non-mistaken presentation. And so, with this in mind, this morning we are here to listen to a brief explanation on the outlines of the stages of the path to enlightenment as composed by the great gentle protector Lama Tsong-kha-pa.
Simjan Tamjig and Sanjay Kuma Matana Chimoda, Chiku, Statori, and the Casota Tachiga Cosoria Toby, that Toby, Cheto, and the Cacheto, Matana Tigumu, that Toba Chebala, and Chita Simjan Tamjig Sanjay Kuma Toba Chicken, Sataka Casota. Some of the Kene, Jajuga Simta, Chuma Sujet Kene, then Kene Karchibus and Jovala Laku, Jovala Labete, and that's Chisopacha to Laku, Chisopacha to Namel Lakodu, and the Dakaja Dakas de Teshema shoots and Tachibata, and Sujinta, and the Casoria, Sobata, Dakaja Zunduche, and something that's something cut to the lay over it. The name was what is and share up what is
So in our motivation and in our prayer, we aspire to attain the state of enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings, and with that understanding too that it's very really necessary to attain the state of enlightenment in order to be able to perfectly benefit sentient beings. And that when we generate this thought, known as bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, we try to move from that which is kind of artificial into something that is a really genuine contemplation on this thought. And once we have that, then we must also then, as it were, engage in the activities that are implied by that motivation, and that means the six perfections, engaging in the six perfections. And so this has been the topic or the subject matter for our teachings, and we have gone through the perfections of generosity, ethics, patience, and perseverance, joyous perseverance, and just begun the last two, starting with the perfection of meditative stabilization. And this will be followed by the perfection of wisdom.
That's something we should have the subject to get them subject to shoot Manchester but Manchester. You know, that I did 자도 그렇고 저라서 그래 다 반제 지금 그래 다 반제 때 땡에서 주에디 개체 뭐 싶지 않아서 그렇게 쉬차이 봐 같이 쉽지 개체 뭐 차이 같으나 지금 맞아도 단단히 가서다 가서 이마쇼는 싫어 양아 대다 단전 두배 세랍 전에 송스다 같이 준준하고 다 송아지 조지 아니 저 세랍 전에 송아지 야가 집발라 소매다 같이 저 파진 라마티가 파진 가보티가 저 가르쳐서 세랍 기회 되는 총다 세랍 기회 와라다 세랍 기회 쇼스는 기고요 말고다 기회 와라 그 규게 망부질 라고 튕게 망부질 규게 망부질 라고 다 되게 되거나 라고요 와 라고요 와다 되는 어디나지 다 되네 이번인데 다 아니 땡에 젠디 다 가서도 뭐 세랍디 다 가져 지금 그래 당 가라도 미드베 동에 못는 영티 대외 대화때 아니 저 마용에 다 지금 소수 배전 전에 딱다지 남갈 좀 하도에 탑시 노티에 가서나 나라도 세랍 매대 잡으러 와 세랍 다 세랍들라 가서 군조부터 세랍다 된다베 세랍 지다 세랍 잠다 요때 이내다 양다베 세랍 매고 인자 그러와 양다베 세랍 제단 교리 개마도 세월 제마도 인자 세월 제마도 인자 다 양다베 세랍 세월 제발라 가르고 그러서나 다 같이 최탐제게 다 같이 군조베 세랍을 교리 개고 최탐제게 된다베 세랍을 교리 개고 다 군조베 세랍다 된다베 세랍 새롱아지 야보지 개발라 땡에지면은 용해도 와 땡에지 보고도 와 그래
So indeed, we have kind of covered many of the outlines relating to the perfection of meditative stabilization, and just to as a reminder as to kind of like the context of the 6 perfections that as we have quoted from the Bodhisattva's Way of Life by Master Shantideva, where he points out that the first 5 are like branch practices in order to really service the 6th wisdom, thereby really highlighting the paramount importance of wisdom. And so in this kind of like capacity, it's not something like wisdom that we can simply pray for, may I develop wisdom. It really requires a very concentrated and a very dynamic approach whereby we isolate and identify all the causes and conditions necessary to cultivate wisdom, and then we set out to train in accomplishing those causes and conditions, and that we are both concentrating on the conventional wisdom and ultimate wisdom in terms of this, so that in order that we perfect, when we bring our wisdom to perfection in both conventional sense and the ultimate sense. And so here it talks about having that understanding of wisdom with regard to all phenomena, both conventionally and ultimately. And so this is what's regarded as the kind of like the pinnacle really of our practice of the 6 perfections, and we can see where meditative concentration is placed as a kind of an essential primary cause to bring about that wisdom, because we may have an inkling of the what is the nature of reality, but to maintain our focus on that, to penetrate into the real meaning, we need the power of meditative stabilization.
어디 고도와 다들 먼저 다들 개발이 가르쳐 그래서 그냥 먼저 modern education 다 나도 리퍼니 개발이 쇼고였다. modern education도 대중의 시행인데 아니 지금 최종의 실업 점 요바이나 근데 이미 제시다 내다 되게 다 하고 와이나 대사가 10회째로 추주고요. 다 나도 리퍼스는 대사 말이야. 퇴배 실업 점게 평균이 뭐 최종의 실업이 계셔 버려. 최종의 실업이 야네 양도 삼로다네 제공제는 삼로다네 아니 가서데 삼중의 실업 계고요. 삼중의 실업 계바상게 차창와지 long 말이야. 다디 아니 미버세지도 샤네 검중의 실업 계고요. 그래서 퇴상 거서 야마대와 냠설랑와 터네 와다 되게 숨가도 중간에 아니 문에 심바 승리 차고요. 디면은 최종의 시라고 생각해 10에 고치고요 말이에요. 10에 고치고요 말. 어떤 뜻이래?
So when we bring in the topic of meditative stabilization, it really highlights in many ways the difference in approach and emphasis between what's known as a modern education and say Buddhist education. So from the point of view of modern education, it's like we kind of like really concentrate on just the absorption of data into the mind so that it can be reproduced and so on in tests and assignments and so on. It doesn't go often very much farther than that. However, from the Buddhist point of view, of course, the wisdom, as was known as the wisdom arising from study or learning, which corresponds with the kind of like that absorption of the raw data, is important, very important, but it's seen as only the initial step of 3 steps that must be practiced in combination. So you have the wisdom arising from learning, then that is honed and that is crystallized and that is refined through analysis, giving rise to what's known as the wisdom arising from contemplation. But then one does not even stop at that. Further deepening of that understanding of that analysis is taking place through a single pointed concentration, giving rise to the wisdom arising from meditation. And so too, in being able to practice these 3, the wisdom arising from learning, from contemplation, and from wisdom, from meditation, in a kind of sequence, in a combination, is extremely important. And in this way, we can really develop true, unmistaken understanding. So this is like so important to be able to have that window into actual reality. And so once we kind of then steer our attitude, activities, actions, behaviors in accordance with that actual reality, we will be able to establish we will be able to avoid that which does not accord with reality, and therefore avoid the creation of suffering causes that we do not find desirable, and on the other hand we will be able to steer our actions, behaviors towards that which accords with reality and develop the causes of happiness and that which we do desire. Excuse me. And also this can be done in an unmistaken way. So with the modern education approach, you can see too that because it's not as thorough, many mistakes can occur. And so recently I've seen a story on the news where one woman had a breast removed because it was said to be cancerous, but they subsequently found out that it didn't contain cancer at all, and in fact the breast that wasn't removed was the cancerous one. And so you have this sort of terrible mistakes that are made because of that.
시부지 잡아 용말와 얘네 당 알아서 때도 시부지 야부지가 요때 얘네 야부시 때기나 그 되게가 라바라바에 가는 조디가 요봐 라바라바에 가는 거 노초 용식으로 저 앞에나 다다 야부 시부도 니마 야부도스 다다 야부 민도 라기 요래 다다 야부 시부도스도 로카제절 야부 민도 라기 그 딱가서는 그 딱지 지게인데 그 탐해와 지게 요사 그 탐해를 채요 봐
So we can see this play out kind of like in a constant way through the kind of lack of proper comprehensive analysis into any given situation. And that not only in kind of medical issues where somebody may be from our kind of lay person's point of view seem to be doing quite a thorough analysis. But in fact, it's not so, because they're operating under kind of an ordinary appearance. Those who are kind of confined to interpreting a life or world and their life through ordinary appearance. And there's always kind of limitation in what one can actually truly discern, and indeed also with regard to whether what one discerns is correct or incorrect also. So no wonder mistakes are made, and so you can see this play out in kind of like in many different fields where what was acceptable as being good and proper in the past is now no longer seen to be as good and proper. What was considered to be poor practice in the past is now considered to be the thing to do. And so there's this constant like changing of the goalposts with regard to what is acceptable and unacceptable, what is right and what is not right. And so because this arises from the inability to properly analyze the true nature of things, the reality of things. And yet we can see that but there is an overall improvement, that compared to the situation from the past, things have improved a great deal. And so that this practice of the wisdom arising from learning, the wisdom arising from contemplation, the wisdom arising from meditation, practiced in combination and towards their perfection, is what will give us this unmistaken insight, and sort of like and to be able to be sure that our perception is unmistaken, unconfused, unmixed up, is very important. And so you must begin by being able to establish the unmistaken causes that will give rise to that unmistaken result in our approach, in our practice, and indeed to isolate the mistaken causes and to eradicate those as well along the way.
Yeah, what that the you must the thing as a to the catchable shooter. That thing as a dual catchable in Satu, and the thing as a to down the colors to good ass and the tank is a Ruata, Shenecobe, and that China to him was Sango Yosa, and a Gigan Karina Matida, Twinga Karina, Sama Checo, what the chip.
And so, in this regard, the development of meditative concentration is extremely important, and so we set out to establish how to establish such a meditative stabilization. It clearly requires many both external and internal conditions to be able to properly develop or cultivate such a concentration, including being able to rely on a teacher, to have all the necessary conducive conditions available to you, etc.
신의 고백에 내 대해 개체고 싶어 저기요. 그래서 뭐라도 지금 가서 땡에지 검지촌 매겐지 뭐 인상 검지촌 매대가 아니 시바라 빨베 시울 인대게 인자도 아니 지금 그 세미에게 겐 충족주는 양자 인도로 와. 영조도 거기 내디 개체고 싶어 찾기도 와.
The first conducive condition that is highly emphasized is the place. Where will you go to develop meditative stabilization? Yes, so and then this is in the context of also, of course, having a fully qualified instructor to give you the instructions. That those instructions themselves are clear, they're well ordered, they're unmistaken, and then you have all the external conditions that one can rely on to kind of keep one's body healthy and so on, provisions and so on. And in this context, we're talking about then the place that it is necessary. So in terms of the place, it's always regarded as somewhere which is more isolated, away from the hurly-burly of life, because of the fact that we are very much beginners without any habituation at all towards the concentrated mind state. And that we can see this very clearly without too much convincing, that the moment you try to concentrate on something, you're immediately distracted. And even the tiniest incident can distract the mind completely from what you're meant to be focused on. So this shows that, if you haven't got a place that is free from easy, kind of like ready distractions, then it's going to be very difficult to cultivate this stabilization.
미가지 시리 가서데 무슨 돈다 레갈 저 돈다 지구요나 돈다 된거 뭐도나 남자 소속이 칸주지에 빼자고 야가 검다고잖아 돈다 그 된거도스.
And so again, I was kind of pointing out that it's such a kind of like how would you say insidious disease, or a sense of distraction that often is the case when we can't remember something. We're trying to recall something and we just can't remember. You can advise that, okay, well, why don't you just do your prayers or do some meditation? As soon as you start your meditation, you remember it, because you'll be distracted into remembering it.
나사 모양에다 탕부 주고로 돼서 사다 추다 돼서 굉장히 좀바이나 사주 돼서 소소 쳐사지라 와 쳐사지라 되게 좀 와.
So then, of course, so this shows the mind is so fickle, so flighty, that we have to be aware of that from the outset, and then choose a place where we can be less distracted in that sense. Then the next major consideration that one must take into consideration is our own health, our own body health. And again, it shows that the body is frail, the body is fragile, so we must have access to good food, good water, and a good place to kind of good provisions in order to keep ourselves healthy and fit. And so, of course, you can see in some places too, like one can be very prone to illness, whereas in other places one can remain quite fit and healthy. So that sort of a choice needs to be made wisely as well. And then, of course, having access to easy provisions in terms of water, in terms of food, and all the necessary conditions, because, of course, we have a coarse body. And that needs to be looked after, that needs to be cared for in the purpose of developing this meditative stabilization.
And
that you know, whatever we gather in terms of provisions and so on, we must be careful that it is done in accordance with Dharma principles as well. So we have to be careful in that way. That is ethically procured.
What is it? And to be taught that the so there's a Dutch Konchok the Yeun and the Sosuke Yana Dusha Gesa, Yana Shedan Gesa, Yana Konchok Gesa. What the day my English to be taught the Debach. Rather penalty. Judge today, you're such a tattling, and of course, the Tadok is a scary one. So, Ninga making jam is just she not out the Dara, sit out the Kunika Yorba.
So, the place as well, of course, is the so that if it is in an area where others are, that we are able in harmony with those others, that they are not an object of that will give rise to attachment, give rise to ignorance, give rise to anger, so on. So, in other words, that whatever place we choose, it should be very convenient to avoid any distraction or any generation of mental affliction. And of course, just pointing out, if you're in the wild and you have wild animals around, then you're unlikely to develop attachment or anger in that sense. But it would be better if you didn't have like tigers and lions around. That might be a danger to you as well. So you have to kind of consider that.
What did it? What did it? And Chitan do you know Darwa? What Nika you said, also Chita those kind of chatting. Draw in a do you know? Just come Jamna, my Jamna, do you know? So. The church in meetings at no more captain in Singapore, and go to in a no more watching the Chile Yoina. And when it does not, Chura Chagamatua. Minka Danamat and Chura Chagamatua, and substitute Getchmutua. Casalan, so the Codu in a no more gear, get it and I shed in it. Yana Tato, Yana Sheta, Yana Nike last with the day, and the Catante, that you jetted, and Consumption, and 당고 밑에 독자면에 간사서 밑에 갈갈까지 디시에레 쇼전 간사서 디 샤와도 좋고 칸냥도 땅고 이제 요데도 왔더니 요데도 왔더니 그래서 개침부터 sabsache 개침부터 다 이제 또 검장은 인다이.
So of course also you must guard against any possible danger to your engaging in Dharma. And that in terms that means that those who are perhaps meditating with you or beside you, or those who are coming to your aid, providing provision and so on, that must be looked into very carefully. So whether they are meditating or not, that they need to be those who are very cognizant of what you're trying to do and very much in support of what you're trying to do, so not in any way to contribute to your mental afflictions or to engage in talk that is distracting, giving rise to jealousy or pride or any kind of anger, attachment and so on. And so one must be aware of that, and so to also consider that perhaps at the outset when you choose somebody to help you in that sense, that they may not be like that, that they will be very much in focus and on task, as it were, in supporting you. But over time, through talk and chat and so on, when they come to visit, that your mind will be more and more distracted, and it will be counter to your purpose of remaining in meditation.
That's it, and that made a chuta so nigga medic, and a kumala so nigga medic, and that jet is what they should say what I didn't need. They said, and there, Mimobu, Chicpenata, Comjack and Mimobu Yatoma to Cheneta, they young Yabayana, Copache Chetirua, was sent to Chetu the drawmaker. And to some jet goes there, so some of the Zemo some of the Camelante, Choplante, what are they? What did they ever chat about that? And just to such a cause of the day, show out to Maddock, or did they give him out? And
so that so a very quiet place that is not in danger of fire, or flood, that are wild animals, as was mentioned before, or of thieves coming, that are not a place which is busy in any way, with people coming back and forth all the time, and causing distraction in that way, and creating anywhere where really is free of obstacles as much as possible to exactly what you're trying to achieve. And also not in a place where you're going to have parties next door, people joking, dancing, laughing, singing, and so on. So to be able to choose a place that is really quiet and safe.
아니 다가니 다 되게 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 찾아 좀 찾았다. 랑게 류기 대다되다는 류 남당의 최된 대세지. 남반나서의 수단 최된 된 맞습니다. 다 중나 간투도 다 뒤마존에 그 중나 다 가서 류나나가 최돈도 다 같이 도지 진동체 어떻게 했다 약간 저 수부도 강해를 요가 이마이나 수부 내다 딱이 있잖아 가져다 개치슈도 미바데 때문에 이게 개치슈로 와 다 대토바이나 뱀스야 버려 어떻게
then once one has established the place, one is happy with the place, then one establishes one's posture for meditation, and as much as possible to try and conform with the 7-point Vairocana posture for meditative concentration, but one must adhere to what is comfortable for one's body, whilst maintaining always a very straight back. But if one can adopt the full Vajra posture or the semi-Vajra posture, that's very good to begin with, and to maintain that particular body posture in facilitating concentration, and to kind of check one's body to see that it's most important that one is at least comfortable in the position one has taken.
다 근데 저 다들 대도에는 소소고 룩이 되고 다야래 개발고 산제 남반 남자 쓰는데다 여와 링안에 아니 룩이 뒤마다베 딱자 하차와 차대도 아니 룩이 뒤마다야래 개발고 요래.
So the symbolism of the Vairocana posture is related to the Buddha Vairocana. Being symbolic of the purification of all physical negativities and stains, and so when we adopt that meditative posture, it is also that which is facilitating the purification of physical negativities and obscurations and so on as well. 안 체크 좀 체. 아니 되나 아니 또 다디 중사도 아니 라바다 가서তে 요월이 이 칼션인 비슷해. 이제 자로만 이 맞잖아. 야 뭐도 안 인데 chen. just check industry. 아니 대요 와스터 마이 조치스 와트 인더셔. 난 뒤쪽 자오만 이 맞잖아. 뒤쪽 대대셔. 어떤더셔. And so the posture is to adopt the full Vajra posture with the crossed legs. Excuse me. Or the semi-Vajra posture, if that's more comfortable. Then with the hands, the left hand on the bottom, right hand on the top, with the thumbs just touching, not pressed close together or not apart, but just resting together, and that combination of hands is held just below the navel, which should bring out the elbows and arms that are not pressed close to the body, but slightly out to allow air to pass between them and the body. And so he says also when the arms are in like that, it can lead to sleep, which is a danger. So that also it keeps the body slightly cool because the air is passing through, and that keeps you awake. And then the most important, the spine is as straight, as straight as possible. So you do your best to do that. So if it's not possible, if kind of like from a physical, your makeup is so that it's slightly bent, then there's not much you can do about it. But as much as possible to try and maintain a straight back, straight spine.
이네 다 소소 매바 이제 뭐네 어떻게 대규 요삼을 야보이 그래. 이제 뭐는 도지 기둥체 이제 매바 이제 뭐네 대규 요삼 사잖아.
And so that to whatever extent one cannot emulate the kind of like ideal posture, and nevertheless that in our minds we actually visualize and imagine that we are in the exact Vairocana posture with the full Vajra posture with the legs and so on as well. That's quite good.
그래서 그 네 가지 차도 와. 산제 넘버 나제 대단 투바 대대 소소 류티마 답에 닥자 하차와 임비 하차와 넘버 나제서 소소 마음 바로 소소 류티마 답에 닥자 아니 야 넘버 나제지 차이여 와. 넘버 나제 차보다 되게 규토에 개와 요구로 와.
So this is also to facilitate the establishment of the causes to actually in the future arise as Buddha Vairocana, because you're emulating the Buddha of the purified physical aspect, and by doing so this is creating the causes to achieve that result.
넘버 나제서는 찍어도 매번 넘버 나제 타요 봐요. 심지 탐자 산제도 심지 수유만 대레레게 류티마 답에 닥자 하차예요 와.
And so also not to consider that there's only one kind of Vairocana, that there's limitless Vairochanas, because of course in order to attain the state of enlightenment one must purify all the negativities and stains of the body, of the physical aspect anyway. And so one passes like through one becomes the Vairocana of that aspect on the way to, well, as one is a Buddha.
제레세 다가리 배나 말아서 제레세 소다들 제레세 단에 대봐 요래. 그와 제레세 단 대봐. 가서는 심제 레레 상기한테 아니 디 투주기 아니 가서도 인제 전부 하차에 투주기. 그와 딱 가서 인제 하차에 제레세 투도 하차에 창아 도지 시럽 하차에 잡배양. 아니 되네 다다지 미나 나체라서 어떻게 될 하차도 거 레레레 차토여래. 어떻게 거 류질 강사지랑 한번 붙여야 되는데서 한번 붙여도 다 상계에서는 다 되는 차도고 와.
And so, of course, you know, in that respect too, when we think of Avalokiteshvara or Chen Rezig, the Buddha of compassion, there are countless Chen Rezigs. It's not just the one representation that we see in statues and so on, and that because the Buddha Chen Rezig is the kind of symbolic or symbolism of the great compassion that arises for all sentient beings. Just as Vajrapani represents the great power, capacity, and of the Manjushri, representative of the great wisdom. And so, in fact, when we talk in terms of the Buddha's body, we can say that every part and every pore of the Buddha's body is can be representative of or symbolic of a different Buddha aspect in that sense. And this is only logical in terms of a being, an enlightened being working for the benefit of all sentient beings, then is able to speak to all the different types of beings through these different aspects or different representations of enlightenment. And so this is why it's considered to be, you know, quite an important part, that to the degree to which we can adopt the full perfect Vairocana posture, that's good. Then what in our minds or in our imagination, we actually visualize that we are in the perfect Vairocana posture when we are meditating, in order to establish these causes. And so that And so, quite apart from the great yoga, which is very pervasive in the West now, where it's kind of like they adopt this posture of like the hands at the end of the knees when they meditate. Rather than that, you choose the Buddhist meditation posture with as the hands, as Genla has demonstrated, because this is it's a very important point of being able to lay down the causes, to be able to bring about not just the Vairocana body, but also to render our own body and mind supple, and bring about that mental and physical pliancy, which is of course creating a body which is perfect for tantric practice as well. So it's also kind of like being able to access the subtle winds and channels and drops and so on, to the inner heat of Tomo and meditations like that. So this is all very conducive towards this Vairocana posture, towards being able to cultivate those practices.
다 단단히 또 뭐다 저렇게 저렇게 시하고 맞다 이네다 이네야 되게 개발주가 단단히 거 자티소로 주고 있나 그 단단히 자티소로 잖아 그때 대 공시차 난 딜라데는 랑기 루이티 레스로 하자 루이레스로 하지도 루이들에 내가 자다 롱다 되게 대래 그 레스로 또 스페도 연구로 와 안디 중앙에나 어느 소소문에 전에 그 가서라다 지금 지난 투모에 땡에지 두바 점 많이 봐 남배 투모 많이 뱉는지 남배 투모 많이 뱉는지 좀 상하게 투모 많이 뱉 새 토벽에는 땡에지 남의 제도라고 거기 대화지 창고로 와 대화지 창고로 와 대화 단단히 소마도나 제가 양지 제대로 제대로 또 자스 무여리 단단히 그 대화를 쏘는 거 거기 레라라도 쪽으로 와
Of course, we're not talking about entering into practices like the inner heat tumo now. This is not for now. Now we're talking about establishing a meditative concentration, and this requires a certain kind of preparation of the positioning of the body and the different parts of the body, as has been explained, in order to bring about this physical and mental pliancy that is very, very important in order to access to the higher states beyond the instructions on meditative concentration that are common to both Buddhism and some non-Buddhist schools, but to be able to access the higher states of mind and realizations, etc. Of course, this is going to be difficult at the outset, but it is that which becomes easier with practice.
대대도 그런 거죠. 루그 최대한 대들려 더 스팽기 대대뱅기 유그래. 다 대상 많이 받자. 딱 말아서 제가 지금 가서래. 자로 틀린 냠내 지래 대대뱅 거라고 좀 류종나 자종이나 롱종부자. 롱종부이나 거다 거지 그 셈뒤에들라 롱온도 좀 아주 쳐봐시고 차고요 봐. 당 아주 다다 셈도 맞아야 저희들 가서 롱온도 좀 맞던 연구를 봐. 롱디 셈시베 슈바를 따라 봐. 롱 쇼트도 안 셈데 쇼트고요 봐. 안 자종부지 류종부지도 자종부지도 자디나 레벨 롱디게도 종부차. 안 뒤져도 그 셈뒤에 이렇게 봐 준 거죠. 이렇게 봐 연구 그래. 근데 저 대단히 이렇게 봐 그래.
And the establishment of the very straight spinal column is again emphasized here, and this of course has been shown now also, I think, to be a benefit to one's physical health, to maintain that sort of posture. In the context of meditation here, we are talking about being able to maintain that straight spine in order to facilitate the development of meditative concentration. And this is done through also being able to accommodate the channels and the winds. And so saying that once one, like through straightening the spine, one facilitates the straightening of those channels, and that once the channels are straightened, then the winds can move through the channels unobstructed and smoothly. And this is extremely important in terms of bringing, pacifying the mind and facilitating concentration. And so saying that the often the kind of distraction is preceded by an agitation of the winds within the body, and so this leads to obviously then distraction from what one's focus is, and counteracts the job of developing meditative stabilization. So by being able to maintain straight spine, one facilitates the straightening of the channels, that in other words then facilitates the movement, flow of the winds, and that in turn helps for the pacification of the mind, and a mind that is focused, free of distraction.
So 지단의 뒤균에는 구구 전도인데 간자도 구구 차주도. 그게 저는 곧 개발 때려서. 내가 진짜 많거든. 자갈 안디 치카서든 안디 그다든 얘기 아마 비자 주마다 비자다 로기 개주자장 국제 사마스문제 베이징 뭐란 게 사다죠 봐. 사다 이제 구구저 로진 진짜. 수고도 어서 담보도 구구저 가서는 로 충종 가라 달 내가 먹볼래 안 잘라 먹볼게. 가래 잔도도 다 이제 구구저. 다 구구들 좀 동바이는 구구들 좀. 다 잘라 충종 잡을 캐나 또 똑똑히 캐나 또 개를 걷어. 잘라면 구구 잡아. 그 당번에 그 내가 리도 구구실 제 직접 그 지금 총구 맞으는데 딱 그 뒤자도 돌아두고 있어 왔니 이제. 이제 좀
Again, I'm saying, like, that if one it tends to kind of like have a bent spine, a kind of stoop or like that will worsen over time too. One will kind of have that stooped appearance, bent over. And Carl again was recalling a relative of his, a distant relative of his mother, in the area of Mungat in India, who was when he again knew him in the 90s, he was really bent over, and largely because of having done a lot of labouring and a lot of carrying of heavy materials when very young, kind of bent the spine in that direction. But there was a kind of an extraordinary sort of result of that. That if he wasn't carrying anything, he would be quite really bent over, facing the ground. But if you actually gave him something to carry, he actually straightened up. So kind of a latent memory of the body. And so, of course, this is not in any way directly related to developing meditative stabilization. The main point, the key point of maintaining the straight spine, the spinal column, is to facilitate the movement of the establishment of the channels and the movement of the winds through the channels. That helps to bring about meditative stabilization, and that the kind of side effect of helping physically is a side effect. It's a good thing too, but not the main point. You see too, maybe old soldiers. They often are still very bolt upright because they've been having to stand at attention all their lives, and so even though they're very old, they still are very erect like that. Then with regard to the physical posture, continuing on, the shoulders should be level. So you're not kind of sliding one way or the other. The shoulders are level. So, and then with the eyes not to be wide open nor closed, but sort of hooded, where some light can get through. But held in a natural position too. You don't sort of like force the eyes into a particular position. And again, I was talking about, and there are exceptions to this, where you often see very well established practitioners, quite realized practitioners who can sit with eyes wide open, but they're not seeing anything externally because they have developed their meditative stabilization to such an extent that they've really closed or dissolved really the reactions to the senses completely, and they're living an internal kind of a concentration, even though the eyes are wide open. But from our, as beginners, it's probably better not to begin like that. Because the point is that you don't want anything to pay attention to, and that the eyes can bring that about, can't they? And so it's better, because once you start paying attention to something, then you're going to be distracted from your object, and so that's why it's recommended that the eyes are kind of like hooded or not fully open. And the focus is kind of like at a kind of a nondescript point beyond the tip of the nose. So this is important, that you're not concentrating on the tip of your nose. It's just that that's the way the gaze is directed towards that point in the distance. So you're not looking at your nose. You're just using it as a directive direction. So for people from Asia, that may not be such a problem. But Westerners with big noses could be a distraction. I'm only joking. And then with the mouth, both the lips and the teeth are to be left in a kind of relaxed, natural position. The only distinction then is that the tongue is tipped to the roof of the mouth and kept there to prevent water and phlegm gathering in the mouth. So this is the recommended posture the different points of that posture, and that even though now we have no kind of habit of actually sitting like that, we should do our best to adopt this posture as accurately as we can, and that even to do our best over a short time to sit in that posture is very good. Then if you find it difficult, which you will, then to kind of like visualize and imagine that you are sitting perfectly still in that position, even though you may have adjusted because of pain and so on. So because of course you sustain in your mind the important fact that by maintaining this position, one is purifying obscurations of the body, physical obscurations, as well as laying down imprints to be able to arise as Buddha Vairocana in the future. But because we have no habituation to it, that's going to be difficult. But again, to bear in mind that nothing does not become easier through habituation. So when we habituate, that early difficulty will dissipate and will become easier for us to sit in that way.
Olympic gymnastic
So again, saying, look at the Olympic athletes, when they're doing, say, the gymnastics and so on, incredible, like their bodies, like rubber, they're able to twist and turn like that, and that doesn't happen without a lot of training, a lot of habituation. But of course, that's not our goal. We don't want. We're not intending to go to the Olympics, but we do want to develop the meditative concentration.
mikten kari ne tigu yore, pene shingi ne do ine re, ane jigme do ine re, ta kari ine tigu yore te, ine ya, nga ranzo chigi sem tu ta tang, ane sanje yu kumba tuye ke tapshi yin tu, ane ta chigi tapshi la tuji chimbo to, tomba shanje tuba set tabi ina, ta yakshu chate ro, nga ranzo tata ti le tangbo kapshi shene tuku yon tu, wa dunbe yu ten tu chene chi che tu, ane chigi tsarab wada dunbe jesu sunga yata, dine kiawa mungu yu kurwa, ruwa, anu sosu debada ichi yosa tsu, anu jitu anu jikaso de dunbe yu de tu jimbe kone anu sem, ta dira netab chiye chi, yokurwa, wadada cha. Ta jigu dunbe ku inji minji koya kaya mara, ta yoba ina, kochi kala kaza ta tanga ine ta, dunbe ku ranga shangyo inba ta, kachi ramne yu kaya chi, wadada cha.
So this then completes the instructions relating to how one should physically sit to establish meditative stabilization. The next topic discusses what one should focus on, the object one should focus on. And indeed it says in many of the manuals, when it talks about developing meditative stabilization, it said really anything works. One can choose an item made of wood or stone or flowers as possible, but it's recommended from the Buddhist point of view in order to not just establish meditative stabilization, but also to establish imprints in the mind to attain the state of enlightenment, and to pacify one's mind. It's good to choose an image of Shakyamuni Buddha. That can be a statue, that can be a tanka, that can be another representation. That it's and to kind of from our point of view, recalling the good qualities of Shakyamuni Buddha, of an enlightened being, and bringing to that whatever faith and conviction and that we have is very, very good, and that the object that we choose is also consecrated is very good. So a photograph, a tanka, all of these are okay.
이내야 미대 샤베 칼라 tanka pen chimbu jiwen oti chimbu ra sam ta yin de ka tanka di 상게 좀 되는데 꼭 근데 좀 랑을 로라 차례 제대로 와. 로라 차례 제대로 와. 당간이 저거 삼도 다 이렇게 말 봐. 그다 얘네요. 거기 가는 미대인데 또 막가 충중치. 중나다 배 충중치. 충중 다들 맞으네 거 맞을 셈 내가. 아니 디레 쳐 맞추겠지. 미대.
So it says that also that whatever we choose as our object, say a tanka for example, that we don't visualize it as something like the huge, like the size of the actual size, but because it is that which is to be visualized within the mind, that which arises in the mind, appears in the mind. It said it's best to visualize it as small as possible, and that if we can't visualize it very, very tiny, then just the size of a thumb is recommended.
당분에 첨부지 삼로 당한테 딜 첨부들 어스 때문에 충동 삼로도 대마도 찍어. 그러와 대마도 찍어다. 이나 거기서 쌤 지금 니와 찍을 찍고 뒤. 다 개치유도 딜에 다 가서 쌤 다나 이제 스토어되게 열와. 슈고요 말와. 너무 졸았다 배 슈첨부 열때 이제 야가 졸아 슈매도 다 가서 뒤 도서 찍을 야고는. 배는 그래. 다 오스트레일리아는 내 디자 통과서 가서 로한데 통과서 자가 로한데 여러분 히말라야 줄 로한 추추추 첨부된다 로한 여러와 로한스는 헤터 electric heater electric log 아니 추추주는 추티잖아 아니 이게 슈첨부 슈당도 와 아니 이게 꼬라잡는 미신도 꼬라잡는 와 로한데도 와 로한데다 그것도 별다데 많이 추라고 많이 더고 되다 잠바타야다 됐더라 추도 추아질라 또 슉슉 봐. 근데 그 거를 잡대 거라. 잡대 거라. 똑같이 어디 당시잖아. 가서 먼저 로 이제 자연 대지게 심을 지지는 그게 내가 지가 딱딱 잡투에 시작을 해 봐. 내가 지가 딱딱 샤투에. 근데 그래서 중앙이네 그 누가 야가 요소야.
So I said that the size element that has been emphasized here is to facilitate a more intense focus that one can attain with the one's attention, because the natural way of attention is very lax and it's kind of like is spread out so that there's no particular power or force to one's attention, and of course that facilitates distraction also. And so here the point is that we want to channel the full potential, a full power of the mind, and instead to bring it into a narrow channel. The image is used of water, and again is describing the water that kind of turns a millstone, for example, that he hasn't seen much in Australia, but in the Himalayas it's quite common with the streams gushing down, and that the water is channeled into a mill to grind the barley into tsampa and so on, and often it's also used to turn mani wheels, the water like that, so that automatic creation of virtue. And but the point is that when the water is channeled into a narrow channel, it moves much faster and therefore with much more force, and can penetrate, and so here the image related to the mind's force, when we channel it into a small image, as small as possible, that we kind of harness that extra force by channeling onto a small image. There's also a thing saying that if we start with a large image to as our object, and then later it's going to be very difficult to focus it down into a small image. So it's best to begin with that which is small, a small image arising in our mind.
그나 drop 틱레 디발 삼로당에 틱레 지가라 근데 때다 때에 그거 용조 삼로당에 들이 연구여 봐. 봐. 때다 때에 아니 긴고하다 긴고한데가 하다 때 차장자 삼로당이지. 그러나 상가되바이나 상가되베가 하순주 손이 차장지 drop 지가 틱레 지가 미ပတ်때네. 삼로당에다 연구여 봐. 어떤데 가제 왔다 뒤뒤 아니 당분에 충조지가 공부하려나 왔다 뒤서 뭐 봐도 내가 요건지 걸려라 두고요 봐.
So in the tantric instructions, it describes the tantric meditator who visualizes within a kind of like a drop at the very beginning or the very head of the central channel, that is within which that practitioner is able to visualize an entire tantric mandala with all the deities and the main deity and all the other deities, etc., in full regalia, all their different accoutrements, etc., in perfect detail in that tiny drop. So it's once able to do that, then it's kind of it shows the full kind of power of the mind. And we can see too that the instruction to visualize as small as possible here at the beginning is also facilitating, of course, the ultimate practice of being able to practice that highest yoga tantric practice in order to access enlightenment itself.
rangi lola anu sangye ki anu kuti chawa dagarang semshaji chawa dagarang semshaji chawa dagarang semshaji no pige tade modu mi tade ga so sam da mere diche ba ina single point meditation chagu yo mari ko sangye kora rangi lola chawa dagarang semshaji 는 도 좀 가야 다 yo mari.
So it's often recommended, yes, to use an image of Shakyamuni Buddha, but of course one can, if one has a certain affinity for Manjushri or Maitreya or other aspects of the Buddha, then one can choose an image like that as well. The main point about that is that one must not focus on an image external image, like we say we have a picture, a tanka or a Buddha out there, and I'm focusing on that. That is not what is recommended here. What is recommended is that one is able to give rise to that image in one's own mind. So it's an internal focus on the mind. That if one sustains, maintains like the idea that is a Buddha out there that I'm focusing on, there's no way to develop single-pointed concentration. That one must have that as something arising within in one's in mind, and place one's attention on that. So it's not like this is to kind of again avoid that we're looking at something with our eyes. It's not a sensual experience. This is a mental image that we're bringing rise.
옹셰다 아니 저기 나셰다 다 제셰다 된줄라 천 도나 맞게 맞잖아. 된주 시험도 마땅 왔잖아. 된주 시험도 마땅 왔잖아.
Because in the context of developing meditative concentration, we are really trying to avoid anything to do with the physical senses, the eye sense, conscious, the nose, the ear, and so on. Any sensations arising from the senses that we want to really ignore completely.
samlote 다 상계 좀 되다 봐 내부 쇼지배 this and the anta what the samlo tanjana and kanzas 다 가자 and 상계게 and 구수티 상계 인고를 차와잖아 차와디 간 셈샤샤야 들어왔다 차와다 셈샤샤 and 간투도게 and 이 가서도 온비셰베게 샤와도 마주에 탑시체지
so that that our attention, that moment of focus of attention, is prefaced by being able to just contemplate briefly the remarkable qualities of the Buddha that we are choosing as our object, the wonderful qualities of Buddha's knowledge, of power, of love, and to really gain an appreciation for them, and then to bring that image to mind and allow it to arise in the mind, and then place our attention internally on that image, with completely avoiding any attention to the sensations coming in from the senses, and to kind of also consider how wonderful it would be to really emulate these qualities and to become a Buddha oneself.
안 다가는 딩게라 안에 팀마데게나 안에 롱종지 지기나 안 소소게 지가서다 다도 셈잉데 줘다 도되게 되니까 나고다 얘네마 땅 얘네야 롱테조다 구제제야 얘네테 얘네마 땅저 어디래잖아 아니 예 초템베가라는 초주 산제 저주서 구수도가 질라 탕자라 다 소소로 중수 삼삼제나 아니 랑게 아니 지가서 남도 니바 아니 지금 다 아니 되자세다 컨트롤하고 용데 남도 니발라서 봐 다가는 신게 지금 아니 지금 때문에 지금 미국 동안은 봐도 제가 지금 게 간데 좀 맞나니 되죠 삼삼제 아니 소지 태양어도 아니 상게 좀 되다 초조 상게들 구수도 유대 탐제 중에다 제레스 그래서 근데 때문에 좀 고매게 아니 백경화 탐제 매바 차수 삼삼제 맞아 탐제 시와 쳐서 어떤데 롱존 되듯이 다 되다 구스당 술래 되듯이 아니 나고 니가네 술래 야 박하네 마마 땅제 어떤데 구제제 롱구두스게 어떤데 남네저도 가자 섭도스게 딩게들 내가 때문에 지구를 다 삼로 방법 파진 거 되게 파 되지 마 소리지
예예요 아니 니가디 솜 말아봐 고
다 소소 뒤질렀다 얘네다 개치주대 샘디 가서 랑 검자는 레스로만 찾도 다 되기로 왔어 아니 레스로만 찾도 인지 롱조 지고 말이야 다 얘네 당 가라서 이게라 내가 제어를 계제셔 미투여를 또 직접 달려 가도 되도 양고 생각하고 여러 봐 그 롱조 지기이나 양고 소소 가서 야, 디 가서 이제 검자에게 에는 사자 똥바서 수여샤기로 와. 그러면 사자 셔바시 대대로 와. 와, 다디가 탑켜와 인수부도 가서 소소 대사가라 미셔바지 대대도나 미디 파 피고도 요라는 자르셔야 와. 그래서 피가 지금 도세는 아니 미디 가와도 피가 또 남자 수수마 대셔야 소치. 뭐다 디나시 좀 소소 삼로 또 지금 또 남도 녀바디가 고가 당을 소치. 디제는 랑 디제 엔데네 아무 미파가 섭샤이디.
And so that as like a short preliminary to this is the actual kind of rendering of one's mind ready to focus on the object chosen, and so this involves the kind of 9-round breathing technique, and depending on the time one can do the 3 rounds of 9 or the 3 rounds of 3 making 9. So it involves breathing in through for example the right nostril of the nose, and as one is breathing in, one is visualized that one is actually taking in all the blessings of the Buddha's body, speech and mind, all that will facilitate the cultivation of meditative stabilization. And then as one breathes out one is breathing out all the obstacles to development of meditative stabilization, including one's of course mental afflictions, but also the propensity for distraction, most of all, and to really feel that one is kind of really preparing one's mind for the job of placement meditation by doing this kind of cleaning up one's mind in a way. And so one repeats that, breathing in through the right, out through the left, in through the right, out through the left in the same way, and can repeat that like 9 times. And then one can breathe in through both nostrils at the same time with the same visualization, and breathing in the blessings and breathing out any obstacles or obscurations to being able to really get into this practice and perfect it. Anything that stands in the way of developing meditative stabilization. And so again, I point out that it can be like compared to like almost like playing a trick on your own mind. That it's related to a kind of a seat that you want to sit on, but somebody else is already sitting on it, and that you may ask them to move, but they are not interested. But then if you say, hey, you know, there's a really interesting kind of thing happening over there, and they kind of go, oh really? And they get up and check it out, and immediately they get up, you sit on their seat, and so you've got it. You've got all the stuff in your mind that you've been doing from all the work and whatever else you've been, you know, getting into, and it's not like you can sit down and get into the actual meditative stabilization practice immediately just like that. And so this 9-round breathing technique is a bit of a trick. To kind of go settling the mind away out of the busyness of your normal life and say, now we're into the zone of a on the seat of a meditative stabilization, and distraction has been distracted off it.
먼저 검자도 어떻게 검촌의 용어마도 세게 먹고도 맞아 내 당고 간갈 당하려면 당분에 검용한테 그 숙한 요 말과 딱 딜레이 있고 검네 그 야다 줘야 줘면 그 당분에 그 용해서 말과 안돼서 그 아니 검은 뇌 가는 뇌도 뒤 하고 제대 개체 물어와 검 대도 무슨 돈나 맞지 때 많이 빠져 뇌 가는 뇌도서 다 말서 가리 샘징에 그랬을 것도 안티 이모이 뭐 그랬을 것도 뒤에 탑 켜봐지는 소고도면 빼 우주 잡에게만 하고 탑켜봐 도다도 투바치는 또 보여지려도 와. 근데 이제 전에 당분이가 수마시고 셈에 굴려고 와. 셈에 탑고스.
And so that so then we begin the meditation. And of course, at the outset, because we are beginners, they will kind of appear that it is this meditation business is kind of really impossible. You know that, but it's simply something that we are completely unhabituated to. It's raw. We're very raw. But once we begin to gain some habituation, you will see some refinement and see the sense in it, and that to also become aware of that which is counteractive to meditative stabilization is very important, and to also understand what sort of approach I should take when those kind of obstacles arise. And it's recommended not to have a kind of a forceful attitude towards them, but more cultivate a skillful response is very, very important. And in this way, one proceeds through the different stages, stage 1, 2, 3, and so on, of meditative refinement.
What is it? And it's down to the 땡에지 그 표현다 땡에지 뭐 건데 니미도 양내 양도 삼도 땅에 아니 땡에지 주위로 조합해 당 되게디 직접 아니 강도도게 아니 검자에 지체 검자에 가라 샘징디 하고 대고 짐스도 아니 저거 샘딩내 가즉 깔에 잡 샘딩들 하고에 제시 맞고 그도 와 하고에 제시 뭐 따데 맞아야 롱바에 롱용에 있는 거 요래 아니 수불에 맞대바 대부매가 차이가 요래 대부매가 차이 내가 요래 가서나 뭐저디 가서도 르셈 레스로 멤버 인상 르셈 레스로 차원도 아니 강에 요 말이야 르셈 레스로 맞아 관들 강에 뒤어 되게 요래 와.
So and then when we engage in as we are like in kind of like the process of developing meditative stabilization. And between sessions, it's very important to constantly remind ourselves of the benefits of meditative stabilization and the faults of not developing meditative stabilization as well. And so to also being able to set the mind in the correct with the correct tension, as it were, at the outset is very, very important. Too, that we're not too tight in trying to force concentration or force attention, as that can lead to kind of like a disturbance of the winds in the body, giving rise to what's known as lung, and that can create major problems for the body, creating a sense of continuous unease and so on physically. That's why they say that, you know, what the teachings on developing mental and physical pliancy are important, and that because once one has, the more mental and physical pliancy one has, the less problems one has in that regard. So it's important to maintain, yes, a disciplined attention, but one at the same time is kind of relaxed. That's quite important. And so you have like this, on the one hand, like deep in the mind, this sort of like almost profound sense of relaxation, of being relaxed and open. And then in terms of the focus of the mind, and that is in relation to its object, as stable as possible, as maintaining that stability.
There's the same thing. The back kana, chola, chenza so what that what happened in the Samutane, and so thing as a Google Chua, the what I was somebody. That's the Tamil Sanjay Kumala Tobala, and was the Rotaka thing as a Mabana, young doctor, thing as a tap, but a lamb Kadishka in a thing as if she take away your head. Near joining a judge of young Tava condition by that, then as a Mavana, quite chats on a bit of a child. That is what the head of your letters on it. And the letter to come here, Google to one, but there was somebody such a tornado, to catch a Josh connection. What did you can't do some time get you in over the ship?
And so that sort of mind, the deep, peaceful mind or deep, relaxed mind state can also be nourished by the positive reflections on how fortunate we are to have this opportunity to cultivate meditative stabilization. And we see how central it is in being able to bring about like the perfection of our love, the compassion, and all the other qualities. That it is so important, and that I have this opportunity. It brings me great joy, and that we kind of like have this sense of great sense of a positive outlook in bringing us, going through the effort of developing this concentration. So the first stage, or the first state of 9 mental states related to the development of meditative stabilization or mental quiescence is known as fixing the mind or directed attention. So that this is for, like, obviously the first stage, the very beginning stage, and also it's for a really rank beginners, that we're just about able to focus on the object that we have chosen, but we can't maintain our attention for very long. It's constant, kind of like far more distraction than attention. And we might get the impression that oh gosh, this is a lot more distraction now than before I even started meditating. So it's meditation that's causing all this distraction. No, it's only that you've started paying attention now. You've only noticed for the first time how distracted you are, and so that's the way it is. So it's not that you got more mental proliferation, it's just that you've noticed for the first time how much mental proliferation you have. So the second state is referred to as continuous attention, and this is really just a natural progression from developing the habit of placing the mind again and again and again and again and again on the object after it gets distracted. And so you can see slowly you begin to develop a little more time where you can actually focus on the object without distraction. And so this is only a kind of natural development from habituation. So here you begin to notice that like before you could only stay for maybe a few seconds on the object, but now you've maybe extended it to maybe a minute, maybe up to a minute, that you can actually honestly say that you kind of like focus on the object. Somebody. So, and the third state is known as patchy fixation or resurgent attention. And again, it's a natural progression from two. Now you can actually start to have real solid patches of attention where you are honestly focused on the object. So yes, you get this kind of more like almost stages where you feel that yes, this is you really are fixed on the object, and that there's a recognizable improvement on the stage 2, and that you can have this kind of more determined as well, resurgent attention. So the fourth state is known as close attention, and this then, as it's named, it infers that we have a more close focus on our object, and this largely comes about through now the development of the factor of mindfulness, and so we are mindful of what we're meant to be focused on, and that then facilitates that focus.
정화 개념이가 있어. 보다 뒤에는 지외 원도 존이 요산자 요장 다 대주 시신게 잘했다. 정화도 두고 정화를 두고도 두고도 잘했지. 내가 다들 되게 시바들도 다 두고.
So prior to this, that the main object or the main problem for us in developing concentration has been agitation, which leads to distraction, an agitated sense of mind, and this is where the mindfulness is so effective in state 4, where it can counteract that agitation, reduce the instance and the intensity of it. Here at stage 5, which is known as tamed attention, and so here we become more disciplined with regard to agitation, but because of that we may overcompensate and allow in what's known as laxity. That's another major problem, and here we employ the factor of alertness to be on the lookout for laxity, and when laxity arises in our attention. So, and here the alertness has the function of really checking for any lowering of the mind, which is known as the laxity, a lowering of the intensity of the focus, and saying that the counteracting force here is to recall the qualities of meditative concentration, developing meditative concentration, bring those positive qualities to mind. So the alertness here acts as a kind of like a spy looking from one corner of the mind, which is at the same time as you're actually focused on the object, is checking to see how the intensity of focus is maintained, and especially looking out for any laxity. And so the so then we have the pacified attention, which is state 6. And so here again, it's the main factor at work is the mind of alertness, and so from the state 5, it has recognized, perhaps too, that in the process of elevating the mind from laxity, that we can again overdo that, and so the mind now is the attention is more agitated again. Slightly agitated, so it's able to kind of like at this point recognize when the kind of like alertness factor has kind of become more refined at state 6, to be able to adjust the mind to avoid both the more subtle laxity and subtle excitement.
다 준비해서 남바 시와체와서 대가서 다 전바의 시신가 거서도 또 용수做过때 또 전바의 시신게는 누가 천년 문제 대되겠지. 천년 문제 대되겠지. 아니 와다 될 찬요 되는 다 되네 준주교 또 개발 체계 쟤네 준다들 준주교 또 개발잖아 아니 그래서 정말 참mol라 교도 때때서 본가도 제다 다 남주 정말라고 다 고발라고 좀 파 시처나야 정말 참모다 고발 정말 참mol라 야 저 고민에서 정말 참모도 고민 노트가 빼면 뭐 용되게 요 정말 참mol라 티 셈샤네 다 정말 셈 참모 정말 참모 가나 때때도 안 공자고요 공자만 더 요다 야와 체마도 다들 내줘 봐 소소소 냠뇽고 돈에 다 지금 흉 참mol라 자 라면 명하라 때 아니 랑게 냠뇽 정말 참mol라 조금도 정말 참mol라 이래 저도 내가 지금 계획 제대로 요 봐. 뭐 요되게 요래 어때도 다 같이 좀 또 개발자 진구 참mol라 교도 때때 본강도 제대로 공부해봐 시그래서
So then at the seventh state, known as fully pacified, here the powers of mindfulness and alertness have kind of been fully kind of developed and are kind of like in a state of equanimity, being able to maintain the attention in a state of equanimity, not veering overly towards being agitated or excited and falling into laxity. And so here you're also now moving from like coarse levels of an agitation and laxity into more subtle levels of agitation and laxity. And so it's kind of like here the qualities, the powers of alertness and mindfulness are starting to be able to detect the subtle levels of agitation and laxity. And this comes about through mostly the experience of the meditator themselves, because this is it becomes quite difficult. It actually, you can really look like genuine meditation, even though your meditation may already be infected by subtle agitation, and particularly subtle laxity, which is really one of the main obstacles to developing a meditative stabilization. So at this point, one is becoming really expert at really avoiding these particular faults.
빈백가서 안에 드니 내가 매다 준주고 떡게네 안에 지구에 술 내가 빠져 간 것이 좀 제외게는 제발이자 내가 좀 따왔는데 지금 딱 내가 근데 지금 안에 셈레트베 냠레차.
So it's saying that at states 5 and 6 is where the real kind of battleground with agitation and laxity take place, where there's the fault of your objective of developing meditative stabilization can be hijacked by either one of those two. By the state 7, where we talk about it being fully pacified attention, and this is facilitated as well by the power of perseverance, so that one has moved past those difficult states of agitation and laxity, and so it's somewhat more easy now to be able to spot more subtle agitation and laxity because of the power of perseverance combined with the mindfulness and alertness.
가서 셈내 계획 가서 세직도 잡았어. 다 세직도 잡았어도 당고 미발의 샤베 갈라 배준 준비 제거했지. 미발의 샤사도 이렇고 내도에 장으로 와. 왔다 가자 그 장도 아니 지고 있게는 되네. 야고 내도에 장도 왔다 가서 셈내 계획의 세직도 잡았어.
So the 8th state is referred to as single-pointed attention, and so here, though it takes a slight effort for you to be able to bring your mind to focus on the object of your attention, but once that you have your mind focused on that object, and then you can remain single-pointed on that object without any further effort.
다 셈네 구백 가서 다데 배주 개백 가서 배주 팀비 되고도 뒤에 먹어 봤잖아.
And the difference then between 8 and 9 is 9 is known as attentional balance or fixed absorption. And so here, whereas some small effort was required to get the mind focused on the object on state 8, this effort is no longer necessary at state 9. And so one naturally comes to rest on the object. Which means that one can maintain that faultless attention on the object for as long as one likes without any effort. And so, in the context of the instructions on developing this meditative stabilization, mental quiescence, there are also the 5 faults that are enumerated, and the 8 adjustments to counteract those faults that are also listed. What are the 3? So again, I'm saying here of the first of the 5 faults is referred to as laziness. So I'm saying that with laziness there isn't any possibility of developing meditative concentration. And there are 3 different categories of laziness. Who can tell us what they are?
One of them is procrastination.
Right. The procrastination, somebody. So yes, the laziness of procrastination, always putting it off.
Laziness of self-contempt.
Indeed, and somebody, laziness of self-contempt. Yeah. Saying I can't do it. And the other one?
Sloth. That the word?
This I think that's combined with maybe the third one. I can't do it. Yeah. This is our favourite one, actually. The third one.
Forgetfulness.
One teacher I remember said it's called the laziness of busyness.
The laziness of
busyness.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Laziness of being attached to negative activities.
Yeah.
But it's just all you need to know really is that if you're lazy, you're not going to develop meditative concentration.
중마주 하모거나 양 괜찮기도와 중화자. 아니 뭐바 두지바 뭐바 두마지 왔다. 지구의 중에 가라 뭐바 두제나 두마지나 녀바차는 요래. 야 지구 마주나 야 뭐바 두제나 야 녀바차도 요래나. 뭐다데 뭐 되게 그 시그널 비와 잡아도 검자도 딱딱 배주 당도 가지고 오고 요래. 왔다.
So these the other faults then, one is laziness, as we have said. And the second one is forgetting the instruction when we don't know or forget the instruction. So it's very important to be very clear on the instructions. And the third is the combination of that mental agitation or excitement and the mental laxity or dullness. They're combined as one fault, but they're very, very important. And the fourth is, when mental agitation or mental laxity arises in the mind, the fault of non-application of the antidotes. We're not noticing, or we don't apply the antidotes to those faults. That's number 4. And the number 5 fault is when there is no mental excitement or agitation and no mental laxity in our attention, yet we apply antidotes just the same. So this is called the over-application of antidotes. So that's the 5th fault. That's the 5 faults are laziness, forgetting the instruction, mental agitation and laxity, non-application of the antidotes, and over-application of the antidotes. And the counteracting forces to those are known as the 8 adjustments. And the first 4 deal with laziness. And they are faith, yearning, perseverance, and seeking the result of meditative concentration, and mental meditative, which includes like meditative mental and physical suppleness.
What is what? What that that thing is deva. Right? Thing is deva to get some of the you said Tony deva go what you said Tony deva. That deva check. And that Mundu the way you check it deva Tony deva. That is a good water. Deva check. That deva the perception you were to get and it do but you don't take it what things to do to my young to one. Do but the gazette you were to get to do the young to what? That to do the jet to Wayina and go do in a can get your money, Cousin Lucian Jan, the Simpson Junkie, Deva June, Cousin never to wait with the Tambotan Yeruma there in a young cook Casa. Person shook some more you mention upon never get to what they'll tell it. Cochic Casada Lala to you what and Lucian Jan, the Simpson Junkie, Deva June, can I mess a young thing? Could you tell to never get to it? And the Dilla then a carry on Gurusna, Lalo to have a chat to it. Lalo to my chat to it. And then I thought Lalo never chat on that Tamache Vatilla. And got things got a conductor to go take it, Tamatic, Jembag Simne, Tamatic yet to much. That Jima Juma June, Shashing Jara Majina yet to Meza, and Shashing Secretary water. Rata that because of the Jingo Juma Ina, never do Jeva, too much and never to check. To Jeva. That Jingo Juma Ibaina, ya, to Jena never too much. What I call it a stroke.
So these 4 are combined in order to counteract laziness. And so faith here in the first adjustment really is faith in the whole concept of meditative concentration, that you have a belief in the validity and the necessity of developing meditative concentration. And that faith then feeds into the second, which is a yearning. You have this strong aspiration, this yearning to actually set out to develop it. And that in turn feeds the third of the adjustments here, which is the perseverance. That both faith and yearning guarantee that you will put in the effort, that you will overcome any laziness and persevere to be able to gain. And what are you going to gain? That's the 4th. And the 4th adjustment is then being able to kind of see that result and have an appreciation for what is going to be achieved, the physical and mental pliancy or suppleness that comes as the result of meditative concentration. So it's the combination of these 4, and they work like that consecutively to counteract laziness. What counteracts the second fault, which is forgetting the instruction, is simply remembering, which is the factor of mindfulness. And what overcomes the third faults of mental agitation and laxity is the factor of alertness that we saw as we were going through the states, and the problem with non-application of the antidotes is fixed or adjusted by the readjustment of our mindset to apply the antidotes. And the fifth fault, the over-application of antidotes, is then counteracted and fixed by equanimity, the non-adjustment when adjustment is not needed. And so, with knowledge of these 5 faults and the 8 adjustments, we can also see how they fit into the 9 different states that need to be attained, and how then knowledge of that will facilitate the establishment or the accomplishment of those 9 states. And it said too that there are 6 powers that we had that were referred to that also facilitate our cultivation of meditative stabilization. And so these are these particular details are extensively explained in the different texts, like the Sutta Lamkara and the Uta Namchen. I don't know the English. They have the Sanskrit Madhya Yanta, Kanta, and then of course the stages of meditation by Kamala Shila, and in his Jerimbuche Lama Tsong-kha-pa's Lam Rim Chemo. So sorry. So I've gone a little bit over time perhaps, but I wanted to kind of roughly go through the actual process of meditative concentration like this. But thank you, we'll leave it there for today. So we won't have any teachings for a month, a little bit more perhaps. And so that gives you now that time to meditate. So yeah, so I expect when we start again, when you come back next time, you will be at maybe stage 5 or 6 perhaps. I'm only joking. So Noel is going on holidays?
Yeah. messenger so
So again, let's saying thank you very much to the interpreter, because you know, again, it's like saying I've no myself no realizations, not much knowledge, but I'm like a messenger of the teachings, and so my words can't be heard unless the interpreter says them. So thank you very much. And I want to thank everybody actually for your participation in these teachings over the year. Those who have come a great distance, like from Bendigo. People have come from Bendigo, but also from all around Melbourne. You know, it's like I do certainly appreciate that. You know, you have your work throughout the week, and then you have your free time on Sunday, and some of you have obligations to, you know, family members and you know, relatives and so on. You're not all, you know, monks and nuns, that you have a lay life to lead, but you choose to come here and spend the time here. And I think it's wonderful to have this ability or chance to collect some good merit for us together, and it's really important. So I thank you very, very much for coming.
Could I take this opportunity on behalf of us to thank you very much for the teachings this year. I know we all find it very beneficial, and we really appreciate our time here. So thank you so much for the teachings that you give, and thank you, Noel, for making it possible for us to access them. Your hard work's very much appreciated, particularly over late. You've had an awful lot on your plate. You've been working, studying, doing the translations. We really appreciate all the effort you've put in, and we wish you and Sylvina a very happy holiday.
That's what I think. You took some
Yeah, that did the center to natural touch the lesson.
Oh,
yeah, center through.
Yeah.
Thank you much. Good heavy.
Like the old man.
Please don't change Indian 500 and 1,000. I that's don't mean something. Can I volunteer for the Jaguar of what a Toji chess? Shen Munzata gave you pay a larger take and you know. Thank you. That's what true. Whereas in a back of you, you are that rebellion. Can I take you? What I thank you. And that more just that I tell you. Lam Rim new to Sanjay Kumatoya, and Janju language. And because of Janju language, but in the Sanjay from take it. You would pay it. I can't say let them watch it. Sanjay South to put competition. What are the legend of the tribute that the person said to was chaos of the city? He was just Sanjay Kumatoya to the detail of the Janju language, but Lang and you to Sanjay Kumatoya. which is Toby what the chen. The Tabani said that she then kind of tendency to use it in the air. Put it to the Tabani Zambu in Lola Dutch. Sugar Mimi Melamato was single 10,000 of Soba connection and that because of the Lam Rim which you had a sort of Devanish young to yet. And it's a million Yota Kazaji by the time. Chung the Kim Dutch and a Chesapeake when Yota Kazaji and she will on the Tojo Jet and the Korean young judge about to get there and check it out. Korean young 다 숙체하지 뭐 요구 줘야 돼. 나서 미 되게 마셔서 나서 잠을 내는 미가 그렇게 안 축구시도 봐봐야 볼게. 난 자주 돼서 봐. 어떻게 좀 모아지를 쳤어.
So we make our dedication of the merit that we have accumulated here through our, brief study of the graduated path teachings, and how fortunate to be able to have this opportunity, to actually really study a text which is the essence and the summary of all the teachings of the Buddha. We're so fortunate to have that. So we dedicate all the virtue of that so that we may be able to attain the state of enlightenment as quickly as possible, to be able to benefit all sentient beings. We make the dedication of this merit also for the good health of all holy beings. May they lead long, long lives, and may all their holy wishes be fulfilled. And indeed, in relation to all the organizations out there who are, whether in the name of religion or not, that are out, whose purpose is to be of benefit to other sentient beings, may they thrive, and may their objectives be fulfilled as well. And so we dedicate also towards the eradication of conflict in the world, be it domestic violence or violence that is of an international nature, and that we dedicate also for the protection and preservation of the environment, and for the regeneration of environments that have been degenerated which is primarily really due to human desires, you know, and the greed and so on, and that people may really cultivate a sense of satisfaction with what they have. And we dedicate for the appropriate rainfall and so on at the right time. We include in our dedication too, of course, you know, that all of the work that has gone into establishing our modest center here, and that you know, it's after all something that we have now that has arisen from nothing, and so that's certainly something that we can find it's really quite significant. And in thinking on that, you know, we bear in mind all the people who have worked to directly bring this about, who have supported in the background, all those people who have taken positions of responsibility, who have really put in the hard yards to bring us to where we are now, dedicating all that virtue, and particularly in relation to relatives or acquaintances of people that we know who have passed away in recent times, and that wherever they are reborn in any of the 6 realms of existence, may they be freed from the suffering there, may they take a precious human rebirth and meet with a qualified Mahayana teacher like His Holiness, and be able to proceed along in the paths and grounds to enlightenment. We also dedicate our virtue to all those belonging to us, who we know, who are related to us, maybe who are ill or sick, who are not feeling well, and may they recover full health, and may they make the remainder of their lives very, very meaningful. We do our Lam Rim prayer. I mean, maybe we do it in Tibetan today.
Yeah.
Rangya Jishan Dobya Landia Dea Shuda Seve Tabya Tajagya Jowa Yidya Mba Sechane Geve Deba Yirin Chingyurjya Deba Rinja Jodya Majaja Kabya Nyamwa Gyubya Jodya Nijya Chibya Yira Gyoba Ye Pende Dede Sevara Jeprasho Seja Geve Mejo Tilene Ruwa Jandu Landia Rimba Taja Nandia Yila Federation Geve Teva Rimbo Jonjoji Lanzan Dive Tunya Tujaja Geja Seja Mida Mimembu Sara Gundo Geve Mawaye Namda Landa Tewara Majuroji Kanze Tewa Chola Chuju Chuyo Tuje Dula Tsuba Deyezi Tubden Nandia Tato Choje Shea Tashe Gyazo Chokwe Kyayuro Shea Dewa Ye Lai Ma San Ye Dro Gyone Dro Wa Che Gya Ma Lu Ma De Ye Sa Lai Go pa na ke gyo shi ke pa nyang pa me pa yang gong me gong du pe wa shu dong mi da wa rin pu shi ma ke pa na ke gyo shi ke pa nyang pa me pa yang gong me gong du pe wa shu ka re ra ve ko re shin kan de pe dan de wa ma lu zhong wei ni 确认习惯真正的所以，下边是的把主真有学，就是拉面那么拉塔巴拉给这咱们老大没见见，就这来不拉同样没过见。 拉面前拉把生兰就不来说，生前那把今年把牛多年了，他就这周元年年马略，大多中华没把它。 说那个这些那把到做这些那就把这些当年那就那做月东哎，是我来说呀，怕嘛生家堂家跌当跌就这你做堂家大多东啊，讲究什么干那诉说吧跌到滚家么了。 主就罗一起啊，给我关多养到老妈的这面去接白老罗去，啥的蓝天云的绕做，多接长接过马牛多说，你们的嘞，真的嘞，你们过样的嘞些，你这大多的嘞，工作送的这些，说对吧？今天看做正把的，对吧？你月心多三万的，电子普诺心多对吧？对吧？有人那边这些。 说咱就老嘛，那点这些说一趟，老多那点这些，马达看着那点这些说，就叫什么那这些说。多谢天主。